Hi, everyone. I'm Paula Harvey of Tejon Ranch Conservancy. Today, we are going to do Lesson 11. Lesson 11, the title will be Soundscape and Acoustic Space Maps. So remember in the last lesson, it was forest karaoke, and we were listening to the sounds of birds and trying to find a way to record those interesting sounds on paper. This one is going to go a little further. We are going to continue to focus on sound, and we're going to make a couple of different maps. You're going to be paying really deep attention to what you're listening to. We frequently get so busy and move around so much, we don't pay attention to what we hear. If you slow down to listen, you're going to be really surprised to hear how many different sounds are surrounding you. There's a significant ecological information that can be gained from listening to the sounds in a place. No two bird songs are the same. They're not the same frequency, and therefore you can have more than one bird singing, and you can actually make out each of the distinctive sounds because there are different frequencies, so they don't interfere with each other. Now, throughout this particular PowerPoint, you're going to notice that in the background of each of the slides, there is going to be a soundscape. And these are examples of what you can do. So while we're talking about each of these things, these slides, also take a little time to look at the background and get some ideas. Now, very high and very low sounds are actually, and interestingly, very difficult to locate. Have you ever listened outside and suddenly heard something and went, where did that come from? And you weren't quite sure? It's probably because it was a high-pitched sound or a low-pitched sound. Low-frequency sounds aren't easily absorbed by the environment and can be heard farther away. And an example of that is the roar of an African lion that can actually be heard 5 miles away. And an African lion uses that power to establish its dominance and its territory. Making a soundscape map tunes you into another layer of information when you go outside, and it gives you more to explain and to wonder about. So you're going to make a soundscape map and an acoustic space map. You're going to listen to the soundscape around you, and you're going to diagram and map that soundscape. You'll use symbols, colors, and other ways to represent that sound. This is an opportunity for you to be extremely creative and clever about the ways that you'll represent sound. You want to use 2 pages, 2 facing pages in your journal to show first one map and then the other. The first map you'll do is a physical soundscape map. It's an overhead map of an area with points for sound. The second one you're going to do is an acoustic space map, and that's really a graph that shows the pitches and the loudness of the different sounds. So you'll be recording similar or same sounds, but in 2 very interestingly different ways. Just a quick overview of the soundscape map. You'll listen to the sounds and map their locations. Put yourself in the center of the map, as this person did right here. And then start with the most distant sounds on the outside, and then move toward the center as the sound gets closer to you. Now, if you want to find really creative ways to represent those sounds by using symbols, diagramming, words, and sketches, and even color. And then you want to include information about the pitch, the highness or lowness, as you did in forest karaoke. So here's how you start that soundscape. Find a place to sit where you're comfortable so you don't move and rustle around. You want to hear the sounds of nature. You don't want to hear the sounds you're making. Close your eyes, breathe deeply in and out to relax yourself and to put you into a state of mind where you can actually listen. You want to listen in silence. Don't make any noise. And you're going to discover there's a lot of noise going on around you. Notice what you hear. Listen beyond to what you hear and go past that to some of the more subtle or quieter sounds. And hold your hand up and count the sounds that you're hearing. You're going to be amazed. You're going to run out of fingers. Make sure nobody's sitting around you so that you're not distracted by their sounds. Always begin with your metadata, and you know what that is. We'll review that in a minute. Add a north arrow somewhere on your page and put yourself in the middle. Now, face north yourself so that what you draw will be accurate to your paper. Sit, listen, begin to draw, and describe those locations of the different sounds that you're hearing. Put yourself in that middle. Start with those most distant sounds. Put them on the edges of your paper. Work slowly toward the center as the sounds get closer to you. Be creative and innovative. Invent different ways to show sound. Create symbols. Use words, pictures, diagrams, and use color. After you've made that map, you're going to do your acoustic space map. An acoustic space map is really a graph, and it's going to be looking at the pitch and the volume of the sounds that you're hearing. You want to use different colors to show the 3 different categories of sound. So we're going to talk about 3 new words: biophony, geophony, and anthrophony. On your acoustic space map, start by focusing your attention on that soundscape once again. Notice the different types of sounds and how they reveal information about your environment. You'll be amazed how much knowledge you will have simply by listening. Some of those sounds are going to be high-pitched. Some of them are going to be low-pitched. Some will be constant. Some will be rhythmic. And some will be random. And you want to show that on your map. So for example, the wind is blowing here and it's a constant. Keeps going all the way across. A dog barks and it's just kind of random. A bird did 1 chirp right here, whereas this bird did several chirps all the way across the page. And then you're going to, again, classify the sounds as biophony, geophony, and anthrophony. So let's talk about what that means. Biophony are all the sounds that are made in nature by living things, such as a bird song, a cricket chirp, buzzing bees, those kinds of things. Now, what about dead leaves? Is that a living thing or a non-living thing? The answer is it's a living thing. So if you hear leaves that are rustling in a tree when the wind blows, my question is, are you hearing the leaves or are you hearing the wind? In fact, you're probably hearing both. Geophony is all those natural sounds that are made by non-living things, such as the wind, the movement of water in a creek, waves on a shore. And again, if you hear the sound of leaves touching each other, only when the wind is blowing, you're probably hearing the sound of the wind and you're hearing the sound of the leaves. So it's both biophony and geophony happening at exactly the same time. And then the last category is anthrophony. Anthro means human. So anything made by humans or by the machines that humans make, like an airplane or a car or people talking, people walking, that's anthrophony. Biophony, bio means life, phony means phone, it means sound. Geophony, geo means earth, phony means sound, and anthrophony, anthro means human, Phony means sound. Okay, so how to make this? You're going to use different lengths, heights, and widths of lines to show the sound on your graph with pitch and time as the two axes. So you can use writing and expressive lines to describe the sound. Along the vertical axis, the one that goes up and down, write pitch, low or deep to high. So if on your graph you're showing things at the bottom, that pitch is low. If you're finding things at the top, the pitch is high pitched. All right, and then the next one, the horizontal axis, you're going to label time. So it's the sound over a period of time. So in this particular example, the leaves blowing, you're hearing it rustle right here, pretty loud, and then it's kind of quiet here, and then pretty loud here over a period of time. You want to show the volume or how loud something is by pressing hard to make a bold, dark mark if what you're trying to express is something that's really loud. So here's a line that's really thick. That means it's really loud, and because it's up here, it's also high in its sound. This one kind of wavers, so it goes up and down a little bit. It's thicker on the top and thinner on the bottom, so it gets louder and softer, louder and softer. If you, for example, if you have a loud, high train whistle that stays at that same pitch, like right here, that would be a bold, straight line going all the way across that graph. If you've got waves like this right here, you might want to make it look like sound waves. And now, how do we do those three categories? The easiest way to do those three categories is choose 3 different colors to draw your graph. In this particular case, you want to start by recording only the living and non-living things, the biophony and the geophony. Record those first, and then put in the anthrophony, the human-made sounds. In this graph, the green is the biophony, the red is the anthrophony, and the blue is the geophony. You don't need to use those particular colors, but you're certainly welcome to. Whatever colors you want is fine. Just pay really close attention to what sounds really stand out from the rest of the noise. Sounds standing out do not necessarily stand out because they're loud. In your journal, as always, begin with the metadata and the title of this journal page. The metadata, let's review: date, day, time, and season. Your location and the habitat that you're in. Some descriptions about weather, the temperature, percent of cloud cover, the wind speed. And then any other interesting information, such as who you are with. Maybe you're up high in the mountains and it's in December and there's actually a bit of snow. You might want to mention that there's snow on the ground. The title of this lesson is called Soundscape and Acoustic Space Map. You're going to need 2 facing pages to make these 2 separate maps. But remember, these maps are related to each other. One, you're drawing what you think the sound is like, and the other one you're drawing its volume and pitch. Here's a review. Begin with the soundscape map. Finish with the acoustic space map. Add a north arrow and draw yourself in the middle on the soundscape map. Record the sounds that are farthest away from you on the outsides of your paper and work your way toward the center as the sounds get closer. Create symbols to show those sounds and use words, diagrams, and pictures. Next, create that acoustic space map. Draw a graph showing the pitch and the time. The pitch is on the vertical axis and time is on the horizontal axis. Classify those sounds as biophony, geophony, and anthrophony by changing the color of each of those lines. And then place your sounds on that graph based on the pitch. The higher the pitch, the higher on the graph it is. The deeper the pitch, the lower on the graph it is. Show the volume of those sounds by changing the heaviness of your line. And now we're going to add something new and something you're going to really enjoy. You will now, after having spent some time doing really deep listening, you're so attuned to your environment that you're going to be writing a poem based on this experience. Think about what you felt when you were listening and making these maps. And how does it feel to really listen to a place? How amazing was that? So your assignment is write a poem about what you can hear if you take the time to slow down and listen. Now you're going to write this poem on the very next page. The title of the poem is up to you. The poem does not have to rhyme, and in fact, I really encourage you to avoid trying to make it rhyme. Instead, a really good poem is going to use very descriptive language, lots of adjectives to describe things, lots of metaphors and similes to create the imagery that you want people to see in their mind as they listen to your poem. And the best, most fun thing is you get a chance to use a lot of onomatopoeia. What is onomatopoeia? It's words that were created based on the sounds that they are describing, like buzz, crackle, sizzle, those kinds of words. Use them like crazy in this poem. When you're writing a poem, be creative, be original, and most importantly, be yourself. You're going to be amazed at how creative you are and how easy it is to be creative after doing this particular assignment. Now, if you're worried that you can't come up with a poem right away, here's a suggestion on how to just get started. Just start by saying, I hear, and then write a few things that you're listening to, the things that you heard. But don't forget, when you're talking about what you heard, don't just say, I heard a bird sing. Really describe the sound that that bird made. And then write about how you feel. How you feel when you discovered these amazing sounds all around you. Once you have finished making this wonderful, beautiful poem, and by the way, you may want to frame that poem, that is, decorate that poem with other colors and pictures and images, just to make it look really nice. Once you've done that, time to do your reflection questions. And I know you know what to do, but I'm going to remind you anyway. You answer all the questions that I'm asking you. Don't pick and choose, they're all important. Use question answer form, which uses many words in the question, from the question into your answer. Order your questions in a way that makes a good paragraph. Number those answers so that when you rewrite it in a paragraph form, you'll put them in that particular order. Start with any topic sentence you want to write. Write those answers in the order in which you chose, and then end with a closing sentence, and you will have a perfect scientific paragraph. So here are your questions. Now, a couple of them are multiple questions, but you can morph them into one answer. How many different sounds did you hear, and what sounds stood out from the rest of the noise? What made them stand out? Remember, loudness isn't necessarily the reason you hear something. There may be something else that's distinctive. What sounds were constant and what sounds were less frequent? What patterns did you notice in the soundscape of the area? And then what animal sounds did you hear? Were there intentional or accidental sounds on the part of that animal? Example, if it was maybe, a bird rustling through a bunch of dried leaves, and what you heard wasn't the bird, but those dried leaves, and you turn and looked at that bird because it was in the leaves, That was not intentional. That said, what sounds expose the locations of those animals that made the sounds? And what might be a reason that an animal would make the noise? So if a bird is rustling through leaves, it's looking for food. That was the reason that it made the noise, not because it was trying to gather attention. And that's all for this particular lesson. I think this is one of the most enjoyable of the entire series. You've got to be getting awfully good at nature journaling by now and really enjoying it. I hope so, because I certainly am. I'm looking forward to doing the next lesson with you. And for now, I appreciate your attention. I'm glad that you are with me. So bye for now, and we'll see you next time.